Everyone thinks being highly intelligent means life is easier, better decisions, more success, fewer problems. But what if the opposite is true? What if higher intelligence actually makes you more anxious, more isolated, and more misunderstood? Psychology reveals 8 surprising struggles that come with a powerful mind, and most people never see them coming. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Intelligence is not a shield. In many cases, it's a double-edged sword. And if you've ever felt like your brain works against you, overthinking decisions, feeling out of place, or carrying a weight that's hard to explain, this video is going to make a lot of things click. Let's go through all 8. Struggle 1. Overthinking everything. Intelligent people process information deeply. That sounds like an advantage, and sometimes it is, but psychology tells us that deeper processing often means longer deliberation, more what-if scenarios, and a brain that refuses to shut off. Researchers call this analysis paralysis, the state where too much thinking actually prevents action. Your brain generates so many possible outcomes that making even simple decisions becomes exhausting. The fix? Psychologists recommend setting deliberate time limits on decisions. Give your brain a deadline, not because the decision doesn't matter, but because most decisions improve with action, not more thought. Movement creates feedback. Feedback creates clarity. Struggle 2. Chronic mental resistance and cognitive load. Here's something most people never consider. The smarter you are, the more your brain notices how hard something is. And the brain, by design, resists effort. Cognitive psychologists describe something called cognitive load, the mental strain placed on working memory when processing new or complex information. When you're highly intelligent, you're often drawn to harder problems. But harder problems carry heavier cognitive loads, which triggers a primitive part of the brain that says, "This is dangerous, this is too much, stop." This is why intelligent people can feel overwhelmed not despite their ability, but because of it. They set high standards, take on complex challenges, and then hit the wall of mental fatigue harder than most.
The solution is progressive cognitive loading, breaking complex problems into smaller chunks and rebuilding your mental stamina gradually, the same way an athlete builds physical endurance. Your brain is a muscle. It needs structured rest as much as it needs structured effort. Struggle 3. The illusion of competence. This one is dangerous, and it catches intelligent people especially hard. Because smart people learn quickly, they often mistake early understanding for true mastery. You read something once, grasp the concept, and feel like you've got it. But grasping isn't the same as knowing. Psychologists call this the illusion of competence, the gap between recognizing something and actually being able to retrieve it or use it independently. Studies on learning consistently show that passive exposure, like reading or watching tutorials, creates a false sense of knowledge. You feel prepared. You aren't. Highly intelligent people fall into this trap because their fast comprehension feels like progress. It's not. Real learning requires active retrieval, closing the book and testing yourself, struggling to recall information without prompts. The struggle itself is what builds the neural pathway. The discomfort is the learning. If you've ever studied hard and then gone blank during a test or a real-world application, this is exactly why. Struggle 4. Isolation and feeling misunderstood. Intelligence changes how you see the world, and that changes who you can connect with. When your mind naturally gravitates toward complex ideas, abstract thinking, or deep analysis, ordinary small talk can feel almost painful. Not because you're arrogant, but because you're genuinely wired differently. Psychologists studying social cognition note that highly intelligent individuals often experience what's called social mismatch, a disconnect between their internal world and the conversations happening around them. Over time, this breeds isolation, and isolation breeds anxiety. The reframe here is important. Seeking depth in relationships is a strength, not a flaw, but it requires intentional effort to find your people. Online communities, niche interest groups, intellectual circles, these exist. The mistake is waiting for connection to happen passively. It won't. You have to build it actively. Struggle 5. Dopamine, distraction, and the war for focus. Intelligent minds are often novelty-seeking minds. Your brain craves stimulation, complexity, and new information. In an era of infinite content, that's a serious vulnerability.
Neuroscience tells us that every notification, every scroll, every quick video delivers a small hit of dopamine, the brain's reward chemical. And because intelligent brains are often more sensitive to stimulation, they can become more easily hijacked by distraction, not less. Psychologist Cal Newport's research on deep work, the ability to focus without distraction on cognitively demanding tasks, shows that this kind of focused effort is increasingly rare and increasingly valuable. But it has to be trained. The practical fix? Schedule your deep work like a meeting with yourself. Protect 2-hour blocks where your phone is away, notifications are off, and your only job is one hard thing. Over time, your brain learns to tolerate and then crave that depth of focus because it produces results that social media scrolling never will. Struggle 6. Perfectionism as a psychological prison. High intelligence often comes paired with high standards, and high standards left unchecked become perfectionism, one of the most psychologically costly habits a person can carry. Perfectionism is not about quality, it's about fear. Fear of being judged, fear of being exposed as less than you appear, fear of failure. Psychologists describe a specific pattern called fear of negative evaluation, which is especially common in high achievers. You procrastinate not because you're lazy, but because starting means risking imperfection. The psychological antidote is something called strategic imperfection, deliberately producing work that is good enough to ship, then improving from real feedback rather than imagined criticism. Progress, not perfection, is what compounds over time. Done is the engine of better. Struggle 7. Fixed mindset hiding behind intelligence. Here is one of the most counterintuitive findings in modern psychology. Intelligent people are statistically more likely to develop a fixed mindset. Why? Because when things come easily to you for years, you unconsciously link your identity to being the smart one. And when something finally challenges you, a hard skill, a new domain, a failure, your brain interprets the struggle as a threat to that identity. Carol Dweck's decades of research on mindset showed clearly that people who believe ability is fixed avoid challenges to protect their self-image. People who believe ability grows through effort, a growth mindset, embrace difficulty as part of the process. The shift is linguistic before it's psychological. Replace "I'm not good at this" with "I'm not good at this yet." That single word changes the neurological framing of effort from threat to opportunity. It sounds simple. It is simple. Simple isn't the same as easy. Struggle 8. Carrying the weight of high expectations. Last, and perhaps most quietly damaging, the burden of expectation. When you're identified as intelligent early in life by teachers, parents, or peers, you inherit an invisible pressure. You're supposed to figure things out. You're supposed to succeed. Asking for help feels like admitting failure. Psychology refers to this as gifted child syndrome, a pattern where early praise for being smart leads to an adult who avoids challenge, hides confusion, and struggles to admit weakness. The paradox is painful. The very label meant to empower ends up limiting. The correction here is radical honesty with yourself first. Acknowledge what you don't know. Seek feedback. Normalize confusion as the first stage of understanding, not evidence of inadequacy. The most intellectually advanced people in any field are almost always the most comfortable saying, "I don't know, help me understand." Target conclusion. The real power of a struggling mind. So here's what psychology actually tells us about high intelligence. It is not a free pass. It comes with its own specific struggles: overthinking, cognitive overload, perfectionism, isolation, distraction, and the invisible weight of expectation. But every one of these struggles has a solution, and every solution is grounded in one core idea. The brain grows through deliberate, effortful, uncomfortable engagement with hard things. If you've been feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or like your intelligence isn't showing up the way you want it to, you're not broken. You're just using the wrong approach. The struggle isn't a sign that something's wrong with you. It's a sign that you're attempting something that matters. Reframe the difficulty. Break the problem down. Practice actively. Protect your focus. And give yourself the permission to be a beginner at something hard. That is what real intelligence looks like in action.